Springfield, whether they cut our LGDF, which is our local government distributed funding we get from the state, or they maintain it at the current values, whether they implement a property tax freeze on cities, including home rule communities like Park Ridge, we've got contingencies in place. We asked our city manager to build out scenarios that if we received a 50%, a 25%, a complete elimination of our LGDF funding, what would we do? How would that impact city services? How would it impact staff? How would it impact everybody in this room? So we've gone through that. We've also taken some steps in terms of budgeting, building up our fund balances to be able to accommodate the challenges that Springfield is going to throw our way or may throw our way. So Park Ridge is well prepared for whatever happens down in Springfield.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchsa.
The benefit of someone like me who hasn't held political office is that I just won't talk about the past because I have yet to hear any plan. I'll tell you plans for the future because those are what's important, not what has already occurred. So, you know, as I said, at the beginning, my main and primary goal is to find alternative sources of revenue. I think one of those things is promoting business growth, getting into retail. Retail generates sales tax revenue. Retail also, what it does is it fills empty storefronts. And when property owners have empty storefronts, they get a vacancy reduction on their property taxes. That means that they're not contributing as much as they otherwise would contribute had their space been full. And that means that you as residents make up that deficit. And so promoting business growth is just one of the many solutions that there is. I think we also need to look at grants. There's so many grants out there that we don't take advantage of.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchsa. What do you think is the most urgent challenge facing Park Ridge? How would you use your leadership skills to address it?
You know, the top thing for me is honestly what I hear from residents. I'm not going to think of things that I think are most important to me. I think the residents are so tired of increased property taxes, and so many are moving as a result. And Park Ridge is not able to draw residents like it had in the past. And now, because people are just sick of property taxes, we need to find solutions. And so I will make it a top priority, and that's why I made a pledge to lower our tax rate so it's not higher when I leave office. Our property tax levy went up 22% in 2015. 22%. So we need to find other solutions, and we need to find other sources of income so that we're not just dependent on property taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney.
We're going to stick to a familiar theme. Property taxes is consistently what I hear. The problem with that, the challenge we have in city government with that, is the city of Park Ridge represents about 10.5 or 11% of your property tax bill. If you look at your bill, it's made up, 70% of it is made up by District 64 and 207. And that's not a knock on any one of those agencies. The schools are incredibly important in town. Frankly, that's why a lot of us moved here. So the city of Park Ridge represents 10.5 or 11% of your property tax bill. We could eliminate our property taxes at a slight increase from 64 or 207 would wipe away those savings. We've talked about that at our last debate. We've talked about it in council many, many times. We did lower your property taxes by 8.25% last year, the recent levy. You won't notice it because 64 and 207 are going to increase it, but the city has taken steps to lower your property taxes already.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney. How do you feel about the proposal to get our water from Evanston as opposed to our current source, Chicago? The Evanston pipeline would save us $1 million and lower our water bills.
Okay, I'm happy to answer the question. I'm not sure about the facts, the numbers that are cited. And I'm glad it's asked because it's come up a little bit during the debate. Alternate water supply. Currently, the city of Park Ridge gets our water from the city of Chicago, and that's how it's going to be going forward. We were engaged in conversations with the city of Niles and Morton Grove to potentially get our water from Evanston. This dates back, it predates me in the mayor position, it dates back to 2011 with Mayor Schmidt. We were working towards that. City Council was doing their due diligence, and at the end of the day, we were looking to make a decision last July that we weren't able to make that decision. We were communicating with the other cities, and we were going to make a decision in October. We are moving towards signing an agreement to begin some engineering work with them. And Niles and Morton Grove, the short answer is they found a better offer. And they left us standing at the altar, so we were without a partner. They have a better solution for them, and it's for their residents, and I don't blame them for that, but there was no option for Park Ridge, despite what you may hear.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchsa?
They left us at the altar because we sat on our hands for months and months and months, moving at the speed of government, asking for more information and more information. That's why they left us at the altar. Read the news, read the articles. Going back to April 2015, there's an article from Morton Grove saying, in no uncertain terms, Park Ridge needs to say whether it's in or out. We're giving them a deadline of July 1st. And Mr. Maloney said they waited until October and then they pulled out of it. Absolutely. As would any other municipality. They needed to move forward, and now it's too late. Frankly, I think it's too late. I spoke with the mayor of Niles. I doubt there's any chance of being able to do that unless now we wanted to get that pipeline and pay for 100% of it ourselves. And that's what really will upset you. And I think that's the next biggest issue facing Park Ridge is your water bill.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchsa? What is your plan, if any, to help reduce airplane noise and pollution created by the relatively new east-west runways at O'Hare?
So, the airport's not going anywhere, I know that, but we can do whatever is possible to make sure that we continue with the flight rotation. I think that was a good program. I think, that it ended in December of last year, and there was a survey I sent out, I posted, so I hope many of you responded to that survey to promote that. I think it's a good idea so that not just one area of Park Ridge is affected constantly by O'Hare noise. I'm absolutely for a solution, and I think another better angle, instead of maybe concentrating so much on the fact that it's noise, is to see how much environmental pollution there is from these airplanes. And I've talked to residents about that, and I think it's interesting. I think we should be able to get a study funded, not even by the city, but by EPA, and determine how much pollution there is, because that's, I think, when government will really react.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney?
We're fortunate here in Park Ridge, we have a commission called the O'Hare Airport Commission, made up of a number of dedicated residents that have been working on this issue for a number of years. And what they're pushing for right now, and again, the airport isn't going anywhere. We aren't going to close the airport. But what we can do is work and push for relief in areas that make sense, areas that are realistic. So that's the frequency of flights over our head, the levels of pollution. We've already done an air quality study. The EPA was here and did a study over Maine South, and we have that data. But we continue to push for relief in areas that are realistic. Fly Quiet's a part of that. We've worked with the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission to make sure we're getting consistent representation at the table there, as well as some of the technical committees that they have. And we're doing a better job of getting there. And we also recently were able to announce that 100 new homes on the south end of town were able to approve for soundproofing, and they'll be eligible for that in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney? I'm going to, I think, make an educated guess on these initials here. Will the city press the MWRDGC, I assume that's the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District General Council? GC, I'm not sure. On why? Greater Chicago, thank you. General Counsel, on why the deep tunnel isn't solving our flooding problem after 50 years of property tax levies.
Sure, I'm happy to. We are working with MWRD already. We're working, actually, one of the projects we're waiting for right now for approval is an MWRD project. It will help the Mayfield Estates. It's upsizing a pipe that runs down Dempster. As far as the deep tunnel project and whether or not that helps flooding in Park Ridge, it's a little bit of a myth that one of the focuses of the deep tunnel project was not necessarily to address flooding in Park Ridge, but to address the level of pollution that gets dumped into the Chicago River after we get these horrendous rains. That's when the systems get overwhelmed and you see the raw sewage being dumped into the river. So the deep tunnel isn't necessarily as described on the card there, but more of a pollution control solution. But again, MWRD and the city of Park Ridge are partnering on a number of different projects, and we're pushing as hard as we can to get that Mayfield one underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchsa.
Yeah, we need the MWRD on our side. You know, I don't think I would be so much of a proponent of going after them now. I would think that a better solution is to move forward and finally do something about our flooding. Again, the thing that was brought up with the overhead sewer systems, I absolutely realize that it's not a solution for all residents, for all homes, but it is a solution for some. And if some can benefit from it, then I think that should be an option for our residents, because again, our city has not been doing anything to move this forward. Studies from, Christopher Burke has been performing studies since 2009 on this issue. It's 2017. Before that, we had someone else doing studies. I mean, we could have resolved a good amount of problems on the money we spend on studies already.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchsa, what are your top 3 priorities, and please only name 3, and why? So,
I addressed some of these in my opening. So like I said, controlling property taxes, promoting business growth, and then one that I didn't get to is improving our city services and infrastructure. We can't keep neglecting our streets and sewers. We absolutely need to do something about it now, because otherwise it's going to be much, much more costly. We also need to improve our city services. Luckily, we didn't have much snow, but when we did, I saw a litany of comments about it on Facebook. And you know what we don't do that municipalities like Niles does? They invest in technology, a routing and GPS system for their trucks that tells you where every truck is at every second and how much salt they're dispensing at every second. So things like that make it more efficient. My opponent said, well, that's the way we've been doing it for the past 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney?
The 3 primary issues that need to continue to be focused on over the next 4 years are infrastructure, continuing to work to lower the city's property tax levy, the portion we control, like we did this past year, and then finally the city finances. For those of you that are in the room, I'm sure you're very well aware of the impact that TIF has had on Park Ridge. Frankly, the TIF, which was spoon-fed to the city of Park Ridge a number of years ago by a number of developers in town, promising great things, ended up costing the city of Park Ridge $20 to $25 million by the time it's done. That casts a very long shadow over everything we're talking about tonight. Infrastructure, flooding, every kind of improvement we've talked about is impacted by the fact that we're taking a bath on that uptown TIF. We need to be careful and continue on the path we're on so that we can dig ourselves out of that and not get sucked into something new when the new developer comes into town whispering sweet nothings in our ear and telling us we're going to make a fortune.
Thank you. All right, so this is an apt last question, and after that you'll each give us your summation. So again, 1 minute. Let's imagine it's 4 years from now and you are giving your State of the City address. What will be your greatest accomplishment?
Four years from now, as I'm giving my State of the City address and riding off into the sunset, much to the happiness of my wife after a number of years in elected office, what I'll be most proud of is what the city's become and what it hasn't become. We're all here for a reason. We're here for the small town feel that is Park Ridge, the charm, the bedroom community, our good schools, our great parks. And at 4 years from now, none of that will have been sacrificed. We'll continue to see the energy uptown develop. We'll continue to see Park Ridge thrive. We'll continue to see ourselves dig ourselves out of the TIF. And the city of Park Ridge will be well positioned for the next 4 years when I hand this over to whoever it is that bellies up to the bar and takes over the position as mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchsa.
You're not going to run again if you want? So, what I think is flooding is not going to be talked about anymore, okay? And we're going to have to close our streets because so many residents are going to want to move here. because our uptown is gonna be thriving economically. You're gonna have shops that you're gonna walk to and buy things from. Instead of going to other places, you're gonna have lunch and eat and stay in Park Ridge. And we're gonna have parking. We're gonna have parking solutions so that people don't complain about it. We're gonna have parking for our commuters as well, because I know that my opponent once said that it's impossible to have parking for every person. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we could resolve these problems. And once we do that, our property values will go up. And once our property values go up, our property tax rates will go down.
Thank you. Mr. Fuchs is going to give us his summation first. Each candidate has 1.5 minutes. So, give away just a second. Ready? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So it was a pleasure speaking, and thank you for all the questions. I think they were very, very good questions, very insightful. And, you know, I want to let people know that I haven't held political office, it's clear. But the experiences that I've had in life and that I've had really being an ambitious youngster are only going to carry over and make Park Ridge that much better. I'm not going to treat this like a government. I want to treat this like a business. I want to treat our city employees fairly. Do you know how much turnover we've had with our city employees, especially the department heads, the city finance director, the city manager, the city development director, all have quit, and all without warning, and it always took our city council as a surprise. That is not the type of leader that I want to be. I think our biggest asset in terms of actually making things move forward are our city employees, because we don't have a form of government where the mayor is working 9 to 5 every day. Our mayor actually who's working has to have another job. So I want to put in as much time as I can, but I want to get the best talent, and if we have good talent, retain that talent, treat them fairly, applaud them for their accomplishments, instead of skewering them in public and then being surprised why they leave. That's what we need to do, and I'm ready to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you.
Hang on just a sec, okay? Do you guys need a sec, or you're okay? No, we're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, to the League of Women Voters, thank you for hosting tonight. Sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be here. Clearly, everyone in the room tonight, there are two distinct choices for you. You have one candidate that speaks in the positive about Park Ridge, touts all the progress we've made, talks about where we're headed, talks about how I'm proud of having an open government, an honest government, and an accessible government. It's important to deal in facts and not fiction. We've heard a little bit of both tonight. And as this is the last opportunity you'll have to hear from Lucas or myself, and myself exchange ideas sitting next to each other, from here on out, I anticipate you'll hear, well, maybe hear more of sound bites and promises. Lots and lots and lots of promises. For better or worse, I've got a track record. You can look it up. I've voted on a number of different things over the last 14 years. You may like some of them, you may not like others. I'm not going to run away from it. I've been working for this town for the last 14 years, going to continue to work for this town for 4 more. I'm proud, and the campaign, while it's been a grind, has been a lot of fun. It's really been energizing to see the community come out and support me and validate what I've done for the last 14 years. Had a number of events to support my campaign, all in Park Ridge, all open to the public, and all well attended. I appreciate everything that people have said to me, appreciate everybody being here tonight, and don't forget to come out and vote for Maloney on April 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, everybody take a deep breath, and I want you to think about this. You have 2 candidates who've given obviously a lot of thought and study to the issues, who are willing to throw their names in the hat in the political year of 2017. It takes some courage, and I appreciate what an attentive and really excellent audience you were, all the good questions, and I would like a really, really loud round of applause for your 2 candidates. Now, I would like every aldermanic candidate who has shown up to come up here to me right now. We have two who are running unopposed, who are going to get 2 minutes to speak. They can just speak here from my lectern, and the others will all be taking all of your questions at the same time. So let's take a little shift here. Audience members, if you want to sneak out because you don't have a dog in this fight, go ahead, because people standing in the back would love to have your seats. Those of you who are staying, if you go out that back door and then turn left at what looked like a hand sanitizer thing, there's a men's and a women's room there. And Alderman